And we begin first up with Prime Minister's three-nation visit. The Prime Minister has arrived in Rio de Janeiro, where he was welcomed with Vande Bharat chants. It is a packed agenda for the G20 Summit that is taking place in Brazil this time around. The 19th G20 Summit, the previous one, of course, that was hosted by India, in which a joint declaration was signed on the Russia-Ukraine conflict and other breakthrough agreements that came out of that 18th G20 Summit, which included the inclusion of the African Union in the G20 as well. First up, take a closer look at those visuals as Prime Minister landed in Rio de Janeiro for the G20 Summit.
हमारा देश का गौरव है वो, तो हमें बहुत खुशी होती है जब से मोदी जी प्रधानमंत्री हैं। हमारे देश का नाम उन्होंने काफ़ी ऊंचा किया है पहले से, तो काफ़ी अच्छा लगा उनसे मिलके।
बहुत अच्छा इंटरेक्शन रहा। वहाँ पर आके उन्होंने पूछा भी कि वो पेंटिंग किसने बनाई, एंड मैंने बोला हमने बनाई, एंड ही वाज वेरी वेरी हैप्पी। एंड हमने गरबा भी काफ़ी दिन से 2 वीक से किया। कुछ लड़कियाँ sao Paulo की थी, कुछ यहाँ रियो की थी, तो हम लोगों ने मिलकर ऑनलाइन भी किया था, तो काफ़ी अच्छा रहा। बट रियली मैं पेंटिंग के लिए मैं चाहती थी कि वो इसे देखें, इन पे ऑटोग्राफ अपना दे। मतलब आई एम वेरी वेरी एक्साइटेड एंड वेरी वेरी हैप्पी।
One thing which Modi ji has done recently over the years, which has inspired personally me, is that he has promoted yoga. So we do Sahaj Yoga, and he has promoted yoga around the world. And that is something very inspiring, because it's something which transforms people. And just seeing him now personally, his personality, the way he walks, the way he is calm about things, it's very inspiring. And I think so as a leader, we need more leaders like him, because he does things from the heart.
We are the large Indian community students here and representing more than 2 or 3 years here, and there are most of the postdoc research also here. So we are actually the proud of to see our great leaders here. And apart from it's one of the great opportunity, India is a strong one of the leading country for the G20 Summit, and it's interesting to understand we are in different countries. Our leaders become the part of the conference, and it should be the great innovative. And I hope the India has a great future for the G20, and it's one of the dominant country to control G20 conference. It will be supporting to all the sectors, not only the environmental and health sectors. Like the pandemic situation, he controlled very well, and I hope he has lots of plan to serve the Indian community.
I was saying like, my God, if this is true, then I was like really happy. I was almost crying because it was my dream. And when I was small, I was always watching his cartoons and everything. And I really love him. And I just, one wish came true, my life will change. And this is my wish, and thank you all. I love you, Modi Dada.
Yeah, I felt very emotional. He's such a big shot that I get to meet and shake his hand and see him in person. I felt very happy and so privileged to have this.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Like, I was so happy. I also almost started crying, and yeah, I was like super happy and nervous at the same time. I don't know why.
I was astonished to see Modi in front of me. He gave me a handshake. When I said my name to him, he even gave me a blessing.
And Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar is joining us live on the broadcast. A very good morning to you, sir. We just got a glimpse of those happy faces upon Prime Minister's arrival. But talking about the agenda of the G20 summit this time around, given that the G20 accounts for almost 80% of the global GDP, talk to us about the execution of those landmark agreements that were inked last time when India hosted the summit, and what can be expected this time around when African Union is going to be for the first time attending the G20 summit as part of the Union.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samiksha, for getting me on your program. You're very right. You know, African Union is going to attend the G20 summit for the first time as a full-fledged member. You know that your viewers and listeners know that, the application for African Union in the G20 had been there for a long time. It came really to India because when the Indian Prime Minister met the African leaders at the G20 summit in Bali in 2022.
Yes.
Then he said that it is my commitment to make you a member of the G20, and he was able to do it. There was unanimity, there was consensus on this. So it is a very happy moment that African Union is also participating. Now, as far as the question that you raised as to what can we expect, this is the troika that is happening of the developing countries, of emerging market economies.
Yes.
First, in 22, it was Indonesia. In 23, it was India. 24, it is Brazil. And next year, it is going to be South Africa. The baton is going to be provided to South Africa. So it's a matter of great happiness that G20, which is such an important organization, in fact, this is the only global international organization which gets such a large number of, 20 countries, of course, out of the 193 countries which are members of the United Nations. But, many countries are also invited as guest countries. Like India had invited 9 guest countries. Brazil has invited 18 guest countries. 5 from each continent, Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and 3 also from Europe. So there are 18 guest countries, so that along with 20 of the members of the G20. And as you said, it accounts for about 88% of the global GDP. It accounts for about 80% of the global trade and 75% of the global population.
Right.
So all the deliberations and discussions that take place in the G20 summits, meetings where all the leaders are present. And as you can see here, it will be President Joe Biden is going to be there, Xi Jinping of China is going to be there, and of course all the other heads of state and government are going to be there.
Yes.
So what they discuss and what they decide is very important. There are also 15 international organizations, like the United Nations Secretary General, WTO, WHO, etc. All those heads of those organizations will be present. So their decisions are going to be very, very important.
Yes.
Sorry, in determining what is the, what are the developments that take place, whether it is on security, but more particularly on issues of environment, of trade, commerce, and providing sustainable development to the whole world.
Yes, and Mr. Sajjanar, important that you pointed out the role of emerging market economies. First it was Indonesia, then India, now we have Brazil, and of course South Africa would be hosting the G20 next. But talking of some bilaterals that can also be expected on the sidelines of the G20 summit, talk to us about the relations that Canada shares with other G20 countries, for that matter. One, can we expect those bilaterals to happen on the sidelines of the G20 summit, particularly in terms of the relations that other countries share with Canada? One, and also can we expect a bilateral to take place of Prime Minister Modi with Xi Jinping this time around?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think as far as Canada is concerned, of course, it's a member of G20, but it's not in that sense, most significant player. I don't think that your viewers and listeners, it will add much to follow what the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is concerned, what he's doing in Rio de Janeiro, because Justin Trudeau is losing popularity. He's losing support not only of his people, but also even of the members of parliament in his own country. I don't think there is going to be any bilateral between Justin Trudeau and Prime Minister Modi. I think the relations are at such a level, and the sort of allegations that Canada has made and the Canadian Prime Minister in person has made, I think those are absolutely ridiculous. They are deplorable. And Canada will really have to walk back if it wants to mend relations with India. So I don't think, we should really be expending time and effort and energy on seeing what Canada is doing. I think there are going to be very important meetings that Prime Minister Modi will be having, of course, with his host, President Lula of Brazil. That will be very important. He'll also be meeting very many, members of the emerging economies. You asked about Xi Jinping. I think there was a very good meeting, substantive meeting after a hiatus, after an interregnum of 5 years in Kazan on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit. Before that, the meeting had taken place, if your viewers would recall, in October 2019 in Mamallapuram, when the second informal summit between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping had taken place. So I don't think that there is going to be a meeting this time, because they have just met very recently, last month. The other meetings, I think with Joe Biden also, I don't think it is going to happen. The reason being that Prime Minister Modi was in the United States and he was invited to Delaware, the residence of Joe Biden, and they had a very good substantive meeting. Also, there was a Quad summit at that time. But I think many of the emerging economies that are going to be present there, for instance, South African president, the Indonesian president, those which are, because we are also looking at the invitation to the new Indonesian president to come as the chief guest on our Republic Day in 2025. So I think that meeting will also take place. And I think in the multilateral G20 context, Samiksha, also we need to see that all the initiatives that India had taken last year in September 23, they are being taken forward by Brazil.
Yes.
Whether it is the women-led development or it is, lifestyle for environment, or it is the reform of the multilateral development banks. So many of the initiatives that India had piloted, they are going to be taken forward by Brazil.
All right, sir, we'll have to leave the discussion here, but certainly a lot to watch out for in this G20 summit. We will try and connect with you later in the day as well.